There's nothing as wonderful as saying to a Jew, welcome home. Really nothing. Welcome home. Most of the work that I do does not entail standing in front of audiences as I am right now with you here tonight. Most of my work is devoted to helping Jewish people in the church come back to the truth and the beauty of the Jewish faith. I have been doing this work for 40 years. Many people ask me, how did you ever get involved in such a work? Because I don't do anything else. Like, how did a nice Jewish boy from Borough Park, Brooklyn, you heard of it, yeah? Get involved in such a work as this? I grew up in a very traditional Jewish home, traditional family. I remember on Shabbos was over, we would complete the Sabbath in a very traditional Jewish way. We would go to Moshe P. King. I don't know if you, it must have been midnight. Dinner was over. We were going back to the car in Midtown Manhattan, somewhere in the area of 5th Avenue and 47th Street, Midtown Manhattan. I must have been about 16 years old. And I see these young kids, and they're pasting up posters on the lampposts right there in Midtown Manhattan. And it read, "Come this Tuesday night to Jews for Jesus and learn more about your Jewish Messiah." And I was shocked. There isn't a doubt in my mind that every one of you sitting in this room now, listening to my voice, has encountered these missionaries, and you know the feeling of what it is like. I was appalled that such a thing could happen. A Jew for, like, that's like a Jew for Hezbollah. Like, are you insane? You know, I grew up with the people around me so frequently. They had numbers on their arms. That was the world I grew up in. The man I was named after, Tovia Singer, was murdered by the Nazis, Yamach Shemam V'Zichram, in the spring of 1944 in Hungary. Only Christian countries produced the Holocaust that destroyed a third of our people. While the Christian countries were either complacent or directly involved in murdering us, it was countries that are not Christian, countries like China, that saved Jewish people, hid Jewish people, made it possible for my yeshiva, the Mir Yeshiva, to make its way to Japan, where thousands would be saved. When the Germans got wind of the idea that the Japanese, their allies, a prominent member of the Axis, were allowing Jews, the very Jews they wanted to slaughter, allowing Jews to come to Japan, a letter was sent to the Japanese by high officials in the German command. Why are you allowing these people in the country? Don't you know they're going to take over your economy, your industry? That's the way they are. And when the Japanese got that letter, said that's exactly the kind of people we need here, and thousands more Jews were allowed in the country. The Japanese did not understand the anti-Semitism because at the time, Japan was not a Christian country. Christianity had not really reached it yet. Their view of the Jews had not been molested, been altered, been characterized by texts like John chapter 8:44, which says that you, Jews, are the seed of the devil. The mind of the Chinese had not been affected by the teachings and the oldest surviving literature in the Christian Bible. The oldest letter, the oldest surviving Christian literature that exists is 1 Thessalonians, that was written probably in 49, certainly by 50. Chapter 2, verse 14 through 16, even as you have of the Jews who both killed the Lord Jesus Christ and your own prophets and are contrary to all mankind. That's the oldest Christian doctrines. Those are the oldest Christian teachings in the church. You would join a religion that propagates and peddles these ideas? It was just unimaginable to me. I couldn't fathom it. Why would you embrace the very religion that teaches such hatred? And I confronted these fellows.
At the age of 16?
Yeah. And it was a conversation, I'm sure you've done this, that was going absolutely nowhere very quickly. In the midst of this heated thing, and my uncle Mayor Singer, Olav Hashalom, was right there with my father, his brother. And they're watching this spectacle, but this elderly Jew who was watching this too walks up to me, grabs me by the arm, schleps me away from them, and says, "Don't you argue with them. You don't know enough. If you want to do something here to fight the missionaries, why don't you just follow them around? And as they paste up their posters, you schlep them down." Do you understand how offensive that was to me? I'm not even sure to this day if those people were Jewish. I didn't just go to a Jewish school, a Hebrew school. I went to yeshiva. I didn't go to any yeshiva. I was then attending the Mir Yeshiva. I mean, we had a whole space station named after it. I mean, this was you've heard. I went to the Mir. You know what it meant to go to the Mir Yeshiva? So 6 days a week. There was nothing like Sunday you're off. I couldn't even fathom that. You know, you were learning all day. You had Mishmer at night, twice a week. I don't know enough to argue. I should be pulling. This was a very unsatisfying experience. That fall, I came to Eretz Yisrael. My uncle at the time lived in the Jewish quarter of the Old City on Rehov Misgav Ladach. He lived above the bookstore that once was there. I remember when I arrived, it was the biggest deal to me in the world. They let you off in the parking lot, right? And then you're schlepping your suitcases through the streets, right? And my uncle was right there to greet me. He told me a very strange thing. He said that the previous Shabbat, he had a very unusual guest at his home. He had a minister, a Christian minister from Sweden, stay at his home. What happened? My uncle was in a Steinmetzke's bookstore. I don't know what, he struck up a conversation with a fellow who turned out to be my uncle invited this minister to spend the Sabbath at his home. Saturday night comes, Shabbos is over, it's time for him to go. But before he leaves, he wants to show, in order to show his gratitude to my uncle, he gives him a gift. This minister, this Galach, gives my uncle a present. What do you think this minister gave my uncle? Well, you were there. What happened? Yeah. He gave him not any Christian Bible, a King James, not any King James, a red letter edition. This is so proud. He said, "Give a look what I have." He showed me, like he had the manual from the other team. You know, it's like, we finally have it. And I told him that's exactly what I wanted to read. And I began to study it very carefully. Shocked as you just start thumbing through Matthew, which appears first in the Christian canon. Although chronologically it's very late, but it appears first. And when you begin to realize what that author did. We don't know who wrote the book of Matthew. If someone says he knows, he doesn't know. If someone says, I know where it was written, he doesn't know. But Matthew is going to alter the Jewish scriptures in order to make it appear Christological. And you're just going, I can't believe he's doing this. And then characterize the Jew in such a way, such a demonic way. Well, every day when I went to daven, of course I davened at the holiest place that I can get to at the time, the Kotel. Praying at the Western Wall the first time you're in Israel, I don't need to tell you. It's very special. Middle of davening, I'm really in another world. I'm thinking about a man that never would make it here, the man after whom I was named. And in mittendrin, As I'm davening there, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Who's tapping in the middle of davening? I turn around, there's a fellow standing there with a yarmulke on his head. You know the cardboard one with the staple they give out with the... That one, yes. And he said, "Excuse me, do you know the Lord?" What am I doing here? I'm talking to a wall. What am I doing over here? Of course I do. I went to yeshiva. Of course I do. He said, "You mean you know who Yeshua is?" I said, "Of course I do. I went to yeshiva with him. He was in my class." I was thinking Yeshua Jacobus. I had no clue what he was talking about. This is totally new to me. None of the Irish, Italian, Puerto Ricans that I grew up in Brooklyn ever use a term like Yeshua. This was something never heard in my whole life. Right there, we began to untangle this cross-cultural communications problem. I blew my entire vacation on him in Eretz Yisrael. We continued to study later from Long Island. And about 6 months later, this young man did tshuva and returned back to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'll tell you a strange thing. I was in Monsey, New York. There's a path mark that was on Route 59 in Monsey, big supermarket. And I'm there just taking out the stuff from my cart, putting it on the conveyor belt. And this fellow with a beard starts taking out things from my cart and puts it on the conveyor belt for me. And I turned around, I said, "You really stop?" He said, "Rabbi, you don't recognize me?" "I'm Mike." Very special. There's nothing as wonderful as saying to a Jew, "Welcome home." Really nothing. Welcome home.